when the bureau business started in Kenya, they were only sharing negative information. So only accounts that had defaulted were being reported to the bureau. But that was not creating the effect of the whole mechanism. Lending in the market has been primarily relationship-based and collateralized.
Okay.
So either I know you or I know your business. So for example, your Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Coca-Cola, these are your distributors, these are your stockists. So your lenders will follow the money.
Who's behind it, yeah?
Who is behind it?
Yeah.
Coca-Cola is behind it.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to lend to that stockist down there because I can follow the money from Coca-Cola.
Correct.
And be able to lend to you. How do we support whilst trying to reduce the door to fraudsters? So how do we minimize that open door of fraudsters coming in and impacting on your service delivery to your customers? Yeah, you leave your name, your ID, and your mobile number. I can easily be able to steal your identity and be able to get some service. And unfortunately, you end up being the one help with a bad facility on your side. If you think about those possibilities, we're always chasing against the fraudsters because the fraudsters are always looking for an open door. Technology is going to be able to help in the form of all these AI, blockchain, mobility, or ease of actually creating a smaller world or easing transactions across borders.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro. My guest today is a friend and somebody I've known for a number of years. His name is Kamau Kunyiha. He's the Creditinfo for East Africa, South Africa, and also the CEO for Creditinfo CRB Kenya. Kamau has really pioneered the credit bureau operations in 5 African countries and continues to shape how data powers financial inclusion and also risk management. Thank you for joining us, Kamau.
Thank you. Yeah. Happy to be here, Moses.
Likewise. Yeah. Happy to have you on the pod, finally.
Finally.
So, Kamau, I want us to go a little bit further back before we talk about, the main agenda for today, which is kind of like understanding who's Kamau, what's your background, and sort of give us the line between where you started from to where you are today around this credit space that you operate in.
Wow, that goes way back.
The shortened version. Yeah, okay. But I just like to understand the inspiration, and it's kind of like the journey you took to get here. Yeah.
Getting into this industry, I can't say was anything planned or something that I had a passion for. It was more accidental than anything.
Really?
So starting off, straight off from school and everything, got into entrepreneurship.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
So at the time, and I'm looking now, this is probably going back to around 2003, 2004.
Okay.
And I became, at the time, it was Kensel.
Wow. You worked at Kensel?
I was a distributor.
Oh, for Kensel. Wow.
Okay. But when I got the license for Kensel, to distribute for Kensel, I didn't want to be your traditional distributor for the lines and the airtime. What I wanted to do, there's a good friend of mine in Uganda.
Okay.
With a company called True African.
I think I've heard of them before.
Yes. And he had a solution where he was able to sell airtime to customers digitally without actually having to buy the scratch card.
Okay.
So he had a platform or a system that he was able to build where you partner with a bank and the telco, and through your bank, they debit your account and you get the 14-digit whatever scratch card number that you get and you'd load. So I went for the Airtel distributorship to primarily sell airtime digitally in that manner.
Okay.
Back in 2004.
Very high tech by those days, the standards, yeah.
So I needed an in to the banks. So I didn't know who will give me the in to the banks, who is connected, and to be able to get into the bank. So at the time, I met with a man. As you know, the way things in Kenya, you're introduced by one person through connections. So I met a gentleman by the name of Stephen Mills.
Okay.
Stephen Mills had started and the pioneer in this region of credit bureaus.
Wow.
So he had a company called CRB Africa.
I remember them. Yes.
And CRB Africa, basically, this was even before the bureau regulations had even started in the market.
So like an independent entity doing this
It was an independent entity, and he started doing this. There was no regulations, but at the time, central bank, I forget who the governor's name was, but I remember the time, said that banks could share data voluntarily on a volunteer basis. So he was running this business and everything. So he was talking to banks. So he had the in with the banks. So he was a good partner to work with because he was already in with the banks.
Correct. Correct.
Long story short, I couldn't get the scratch card data electronically. Cancel at the time said I would have to buy the physical scratch cards.
Wow.
And then convert it into digitals.
No way.
Yeah, but I still went ahead with the cancel distributorship because I had it.
Okay, got you.
But needless to say, I guess because it was not the way I was looking at going about it and everything, it didn't. It failed.
Wow.
The business failed. But as an entrepreneur, you go through successes and you go through dips and everything. But at the time, having engaged with Steve Mills and everything, said, actually, listen, I'm building this proposition for this credit bureaus across Africa and everything, and I need people to be able to do this.
So he offered to recruit you?
Yes, and that's how I got into the bureau business.
So one door closed, another one opened.
Another one opened.
Awesome.
And here I am 22 years later.
From that moment, from
Yes.
that inception.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting the way, because the credit space is quite unique, right? It's not something that somebody actually kind of would say, I want to go into credit. It
No.
feels that way, but it kind of feels like probably you get into that arena and you think this is so incredibly important or valuable, and that becomes the more interesting part, right?
And you start seeing things very differently. If you consider the credit space and what credit does, credit actually opens doors for economic activity. How do you oil an economy? By actually fueling working capital to people's businesses in their pockets or spend, which now just gets money circulating. So it's a very key aspect of any economy, ability to be able to borrow so that you can be able to build out your propositions.
Correct. And of course, things like mortgages and all don't happen.
Exactly.
It's not
Yeah,
there,
they don't. Yeah.
And those are key drivers behind the economy.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about the milestones and how did you're clearly in charge here. You're the one who's set up Creditinfo. What's with this like setting it up in Kenya, in the region, getting clients? Do you have any milestones you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. So again, I didn't set it up.
Uh-huh.
So remember, I was with Steve Mills. Steve Mills had CRB Africa, which he later on sold to TransUnion, who are a massive global credit bureau based out of America. So while working there, I was, as many people do in unemployment, move on to different places. So I from coming from a founding, so this is one key milestone, I'll probably say, coming from a founding credit bureau in Kenya, moved to Creditinfo, where we are right now, which is a third licensed bureau.
Okay.
So by the time I was leaving TransUnion, I was the CEO. I then joined Creditinfo.
Okay.
So you can imagine, we build out a proposition, so the regulations come through,
Yes.
build up the market, and then 6 years into building the market, I leave to join this new kid on the block.
And I feel like you were the first, and then you went to TransUnion, which of course has this global footprint as well. I didn't even know about that, to be honest. But so you had a period at TransUnion as MD, and then you came here to set up this one.
So it was already been set up, so they kind of poached me, so I came and I joined.
Okay.
So the first milestone was, I guess, in the industry is I came from the top, the number one bureau
at the time
to the underdog.
Wow.
So it was
a big change.
It was an experience as well, and I think it was a good challenge moving from TransUnion to Creditinfo. So when Creditinfo actually opened up in the market, so when the bureau business started in Kenya, they were only sharing negative information. So only accounts that had defaulted were being reported to the bureau. But that was not creating the effect of the whole mechanism. So in 2014, the regulations changed to allow for full file reporting. So that's reporting both the good and the bad on an
brilliant.
individual.
Okay.
And that's the time when Creditinfo thought actually there's an opportunity for us to go into the market, because at that point everyone will be getting the positive data at the same time.
Correct.
So we'll be starting off at the, from the go at the same
And then
place.
it gets much bigger from that point of view.
Exactly. But the license took longer to come out and everything. So by the time we got licensed in 2015. So next month is actually our 10-year anniversary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But by the time we actually got fully operational and operating the market, we are looking at late 2016, early 2017 is when we started.
So give or take 8 years thereabouts.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2017 started, and we had crazy challenges in the market in terms of going around to banks, knocking on doors and trying to open, and they're like, Kamau, I already have data. I have data from Metropole. I have data from TransUnion.
Yeah.
What is different from yours? And to actually even make things even more difficult, we didn't have all the data because we came in late. So getting all the data being submitted by all the banks and everything was difficult. So we had some significant data gaps.
So the build-up period that you had to go through.
Exactly. So it became very difficult to try and actually break into this market. What is it that you're offering that is different? So we really needed to reposition our thinking, our proposition in the market to be able to be of any value in the market. So we look towards analytics, data as the depository of data, but then let's focus on actually building our analytics proposition.
Okay.
And that actually coincided with the growth or the opening up with digital lending.
Which has taken off like crazy in Kenya.
Had taken off. So you started getting all these fintechs coming in. So if you remember, there was a time there were like 300 plus fintechs in the market. There were loads of people. So our proposition actually kind of started fitting in very well in terms of offering our analytics capability. So we started being seen more of a consulting house, doing more of analytics and building out scorecards for different lenders. And then we've got a scorecard. But the one thing, as we engaged with these fintechs that were coming in, quickly realized, where do you house this scorecard? And even if I have a scorecard, Moses is a good score, 750. But what limit do I give them? What tenure do I give the person? How do you operationalize this whole proposition from a digital perspective? So the opening for a decision engine was actually growing. So
wow,
the bureaus in the market at the time just had the core bureau system, which is just delivering your credit report and a score. But there was a lot more that needed to be put in, rules-based kind of lend. How do I put certain rules to accept a customer of a certain score for a certain product and term, and so on and so forth. So the next milestone, we put this, introduced a decision engine into the market, which we call IDM. And actually, to go back, what we actually had initially was a big, what we call B. It is a business evaluation engine. It's just this huge engine that churns all this data and gives a response. So we tried to sell that, but it was such a heavy thing to sell.
Yeah.
Thought, okay, fine, we really need to relook at this proposition. So we offered, I guess, a simple way of putting it, just a UI or a small window where I could be able to input what I want, but all the heavy work is done at the back end.
Fantastic.
So we introduced what we call IDM, Instant Decisioning Module, which is probably today our key platform in what we offer our clients, because it's very nimble and malleable to do all sorts of different things within the organization or within a lender's business. So IDM came in, the decision engine, started selling it to a lot of these digital lenders who, at the time, a decision engine would probably cost you a lot of money. But here is someone who's actually offering a decision engine on a SaaS model,
Which is unique at that point.
Which is pretty unique at the time. So all you're doing is you don't have to think about a capex cost. It's now an operational cost. On every inquiry, I'm charging you for the bureau data plus a decision that is being pushed through this decision engine.
And it's a plug-and-play scenario.
A plug-and-play kind of scenario. With all the APIs and everything available in the market. So that was another big milestone for us. So we've been able to put our our analytics proposition first. Now we go into decisioning. That decisioning then working with the different clients in the market opened up doors for us to an opportunity to work with Safaricom. So the instant decisioning module is actually installed in Safaricom and is actually used to churn out a lot of decisions.
Wow.
Including
and I'm guessing
the scorecards.
This would be presumably used on products like Fuliza, Mshwari, and
that's the proposition, yes. Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's a proposition to get any lending to actually be able to be pushed through this decision engine.
So obviously you have a unique vantage point. Yeah, you've been in this space for over 20 years. You've seen what has been happening in the credit space. When you look at, say, the last 10 to 20 years, what are some of the biggest highlights that maybe come to mind around the broader industry dynamic? How has it evolved? How has it changed? What did it look like then? What does it look like now when you sort of look at them across those years?
So I think the biggest change is lending in the market has been primarily relationship-based and collateralized.
Okay.
So either I know you or I know your business. So for example, your Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Coca-Cola, these are your distributors. These are your stockists. So your lenders will follow the money.
Who's behind it, yeah?
Who is behind it?
Yeah.
Coca-Cola is behind it.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to lend to that stockist down there because I can follow the money from Coca-Cola.
Correct.
And be able to lend to you. So that was generally what lending was. Then later on, it opened up to saying, okay, fine, if you work at Coca-Cola, we'll give you a facility so long as Coca-Cola or even Creditinfo, so long as Creditinfo will deduct your salary and submit to us.
Correct.
Again, that is still very collateralized in the sense that if you don't have a pay slip or the tripartite agreement with the bank, then access to credit becomes very difficult.
Correct.
Then advent of digital lending. Mshwari being the first in the market, lending to individuals, and you've never seen the guy.
And yet you have the confidence and the ability to do so.
And you're lending to the guy. So we've moved from a position where lending was based on a relationship. I know you. I can vouch for you. I can give you facility.
Is that also behind the non-performing loans? Because it's, historically.
I mean, you see, the digital loans NPL is a lot lower than your traditional relationship.
Because that was sentiment-driven as well. Yeah, it is. I believe you're solid. I believe you're
exactly. Yeah,
it wasn't data-driven.
It's not. Yeah, it's relationship-based.
So that is now basically no longer the case.
It's no longer the case. Okay, then if you think about it, a lot of lending, and we're talking about very early 2000s, was only for corporates and for individuals. Individuals are very difficult to get a facility. You either had to go to a SACCO or microfinance is where you'd probably be able to get a facility. Yeah. But even then, it was still very heavily collateralized. So I remember when we started the bureau back in 2010, thereabouts, the number of records we had on the bureau was on probably about 700,000 people.
Okay.
And those are only because in the beginning, they were only sharing negative data.
Correct.
So these are the people with bad facilities. But 700,000 bad accounts is also very low, considering 2010, we were probably a 45 million population.
Correct. In relative terms, yeah.
In relative terms, not to say that we are bad in general, so it should have been higher.
Yeah.
But it's a very low number. So it was obvious that credit was not very available. Today, we have over 24 million individuals on the bureau.
Wow. That's like half the Kenyan population.
Yeah.
Essentially.
We are 57. So yeah, just below.
And that, but it goes beyond the banked versus unbanked story, right? I mean, for this person has a mobile identity, they would be in that database.
Exactly,
correct?
They would be, yeah.
Awesome.
Much, yeah.
So I'm also keen to understand maybe a little bit about the local scenario versus the global scenario. I think I heard earlier that you're in, is it over 40 markets?
Over 50 markets
over
globally.
50 markets globally. Yeah. And I'm just kind of keen to understand a couple of things around the Creditinfo Kenya stroke East African concept. What makes it unique here? Or rather, what makes you unique from a Kenyan perspective where Creditinfo is concerned?
Kenya is unique in very many ways. It probably started from the day Michael Joseph said we are peculiar.
It's true. There was truth in it,
Yeah,
even though he was hammered for it at the time.
Yeah,
no?
there was definitely some truth, because even if I was to compare Kenya with Tanzania, Uganda, purely from a digital perspective, and I'm not even talking about lending or anything like that, and these numbers are actually open they're out there in the public. If you're to look at penetration of mobile money in those three markets, it's very different. Your M-Pesa usage in Tanzania is good, but it's nowhere near close to the penetration rate or the numbers that we are looking at here in Kenya. So Kenya is very unique in that aspect, is that Kenyans have been very good at embracing technology, new things, and really having a good go at it.
Yes.
And pushing it through. So from that perspective, it's very different from any other market, I would say, globally. We've not learned how to crawl, to walk, to run. We just crawled and then we were leaping,
In fact, I think the story has always been, even with M-Pesa, that by the time the regulators and the authorities started to see this thing is blowing up, it was already too late.
Yeah.
There was no time, the train had gone.
The horse had bolted.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, Kenya is very unique.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I believe, not just because I'm Kenyan, if there's a new proposition, this is probably the place to come and check it, to try it out.
It's the best place to experiment.
Yes.
Because the dynamics allow you to do so.
We are open enough to try these new things and see how far we can push them.
Wow. So as we talk about regulation and just sort of staying within the boundaries, of course, I'm sure, Central Bank of Kenya and others, how do you make sure that Creditinfo is always essentially in line with whatever they're doing from a regulatory standpoint?
Now, whenever you bring up the story of the regulator, it's a very touchy
one. And the things I'm sure you will not say. You never want to be on the wrong side of that. Yeah.
However, in as much as I said it's touchy, the regulators are actually they are key partners of Creditinfo. And the reason I say that, and talking from an entrepreneur position, is that you want to have a business that's sustainable for the long term.
Correct.
And if you need these regulators to be able to put certain things in check, to provide some sort of balance and protection over the market and customers for its sustainability. In any given situation, you'll always have some bad apples.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when these bad apples come in, they ruin the market for everyone.
Correct.
Going back to what I was telling you as opening up in the Kenyan market, our analytics proposition, then going to actually offering our business to all these fintechs, or a good number of fintechs.
Correct.
It shut down at COVID. Remember when COVID came in?
Correct.
All these digital lenders were shut down and everything.
Remember.
That impacted our business because all of a sudden, our customer base has gone down to zero.
Wow.
Because I didn't have banks. Because the banks, it was very difficult to penetrate them.
Correct.
So all of a sudden, I went down to zero. However, if these digital lenders were regulated at the time, my business would have probably been at a better position.
I get you.
So regulators are very key in ensuring sustainability of business.
And also with regulators, how do you deal with the fact that you want to innovate, you want to do new things? Possibly they have to go through some kind of review.
I think there's always a thing about regulators being behind of innovation. That will always be the case. But the thing about a regulator, the key mandate is to ask the critical questions that we're not thinking of or that we're not seeing for the long term.
And in the best interests of the stakeholders.
In the best interests of the stakeholders. So
correct.
It's worth our while to be patient and work with the regulators because you want a sustainable business for the long term.
Correct. Wow.
Yeah.
What sort of partnerships have you found to be essential or necessary for Creditinfo to thrive within this region?
So regulator, one, like I mentioned. Two, and I think this kind of, there are different data sources that we need to be able to for us to be effective in the delivery of our services, we need to be able to access various data points.
Yeah.
So government is a very key partner of ours because we need to be able to validate, verify identification, be it
Yeah.
an individual or a business. So actually, those government kind of engagements are very key and critical in those partnerships are key and critical in the delivery of our services. Our own customers, lenders, are key. In fact, I don't like referring to them as customers, but more of partners, because our proposition is has always been or the way it has been from the beginning. It's a B2B relationship, me
Correct.
offering a business proposition to a bank. But the way at least we are trying to position Creditinfo differently in the market.
Yeah.
It's a B2B to C proposition.
Okay.
How do we help our business partners, who are the banks, identify profitable customers, service their customers better? So they are, again, very key partners for us, not customers, because the end user, the person who's actually getting the credit, is a real customer.
Ultimately, yeah.
The ultimate
It's
customer.
just that they come through your intermediary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the banks, or the lenders, should I say, are key partners for us.
So the main reason we're here today, which is obviously the launch of this new identity and fraud system, or what you're calling the eKYC, is why we're here. And I'm kind of interested to know a little bit more about what it is, and maybe why now, and of course, why Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we mentioned, and today, especially this season that we're in, we have a lot of 2024 results being announced by the banks.
Correct.
And in almost most of them, when you see them, and you see how their customers are engaging.
Yes.
It's now on a digital channel.
Okay.
There are fewer people who are engaging with lenders on a, as we had before, physically going to a branch, identifying
Talk
yourself.
to the manager.
So how do we, again, like I said, our partners, the banks, how do we give them a proposition to better serve the customer, the end customer, the B2B to C proposition?
Correct.
So eKYC and fraud becomes a very key component. So before, as a credit bureau, everyone sees us as a partner to support at the point of lending. But if we're now engaging with customers on a digital platform, we need to be cognizant of the fact that you're no longer physically verifying anyone or identifying someone. You need to engage them on a digital platform.
Correct.
How do we support whilst trying to reduce the door to fraudsters? So how do we minimize that open door of fraudsters coming in and impacting on your service delivery to your customers, impacting your NPL numbers, and so on and so forth? So this is very key in terms of enabling or assisting. Like I said earlier on, our aim is to help our partners identify the most profitable customer. So how do we do that in a seamless way through a digital channel?
That sounds very different from what you're saying earlier, which is to identify the bad apples versus
Exactly.
the good ones.
Yeah.
Right? That's where it came from. Huh?
That's where it came from. So it was to help manage risk. So at the end of the day, we are trying to manage risk. That is the thing that we're all trying to do. But as opposed to, as we would say before, we're helping, which we still do, reduce NPLs. It's partnering with the lenders to help them be able to deliver a proposition to the end customer.
Okay.
That is seamless and that works in the best interest of their customers.
Okay. And why Kenya? Why did you choose Kenya as the first place to do this?
So it's interesting again. Like I mentioned before, if you want to try something new, come here first, and you'll see how it works. So when from a group perspective, when they're looking, okay, this is a proposition we want to roll out. How does it look like? There's a study that was done. How do people interact in your countries and everything? What's digital engagement like, and so on and so forth. And again, because of the success of mobile money in the market and everything, Kenya scored very highly. And that's one, internal. Two, look at external, now looking at our business partners, the people we service. they are all talking about this as well.
Yeah.
I want to be able to engage my customers digitally. Today, primary onboarding proposition, eKYC, everyone is doing it. Give me your ID number, I check with IPRS, I confirm you're good. That's
All
it.
good, yeah.
But you have now people who are much more creative and innovative and going a bit further to be able to take advantage
Correct.
of the, I don't want to say loose, but the easy verification process.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
So what problems are you solving for local financial institutions?
So you can imagine, how do I, when you walked into the building today, you left your ID,
They
name.
didn't take mine today,
Okay,
but I came in, yeah.
yeah, I hope they didn't.
But in many instances, people do take your ID
Yeah.
before you get in, yeah.
So your profile is out there and available for people to use.
When you sign that book.
Yeah, you leave your name, your ID, and your mobile number. I can easily be able to steal your identity and be able to get some service. And unfortunately, you end up being the one held with a bad facility
Yeah.
on your side. So we want to try and minimize that. So there's protecting the individual from their profile being stolen by fraudsters, and also the partners that we service. How do we minimize NPLs or any bad apples that could be coming through the door?
Great. So how does this eKYC proposition kind of go into broader goals like financial inclusion and also digital transformation for Creditinfo?
So going back a bit when I told you about this platform that we introduced in the market, IDM.
IDM, yes.
That's able to integrate into multiple data sources. So one is IPRS. So if I'm doing a check on Moses, I want to get as many data points that I can as possible and be able to confirm that all these data points point to Moses.
The actual Moses, yeah.
And it's not a situation where I've stolen your identity and based on different data points, I only have this one that is pointing to me, whereas I believe you should have a lot more data points that would point to you being that individual. So how do I create a report that gives me confidence that based on all these points, I am talking to the actual Moses, and not someone who's gotten an identity, gone and got a phone today and tried to
the
run
actual
a transaction.
Individual.
Exactly.
Yeah. Think about the future of credit intelligence, right? Where is this going? Where do you see digital identity and fraud prevention evolving in this space?
It's going to be a very big piece of everything.
Yeah.
With what we've seen today with AI and what is possible, deep fake, and so on. I mean, someone could, for all you know, someone has curated this podcast using deep fake. It's possible, and
it could happen, yeah.
And some AI, and they're running this podcast, and you've got no idea about it. So, if you think about those possibilities, we are always chasing against the fraudsters because the fraudsters are always looking for an open door.
Exactly.
So this becomes a key proposition that has to keep evolving to be able to keep up with whatever changes are happening in the market.
And that protects the market in terms of what is happening on the ground. Yeah. Anything else that comes to mind around that?
The thing is that the reality of the fact is that we would always be chasing after someone looking for an open door. So it's always trying to figure out how do you keep these doors shut and ensure that you're providing a service that is protecting individuals' identity.
Okay. And what role do you see other technologies like AI, blockchain, mobile data playing in what Creditinfo does?
So, I mean, different blockchain, for example, we've got partnerships with people who are able to, so Moses moves to America today. You're trying to get a credit card or a house and you need your credit profile. So we've got partners who, via blockchain, which is a trusted platform, get your credit report from here delivered to a lender or whoever it is that you're engaging with on the other side in America.
And that's through blockchain, eh?
And through blockchain, because it needs to be on a platform that's protected, trusted, and because it's you who is delivering the report, yeah?
Yes.
Because I can't, there's no cross-border data sharing. I can't
Yes.
share data that we have on the bureau to the people in the States. But Moses can ask for his report to give someone in the States.
Okay.
But when Moses is giving the report to the person in the States needs to be confident that Moses didn't manipulate the report and gave me something to look good.
Correct.
Yeah.
Wow.
So technology is going to be able to help in the form of all these AI, blockchain, mobility, or ease of actually creating a smaller world for or easing transactions across borders.
Do you see AI playing any specific roles in this process?
So we say that we use a lot of AI in terms of our scoring, build outs and everything, or querying, or making adjustments or improving as time goes by. So AI is more of a utility as
Yes.
opposed to something that is there. So it's definitely a utility that helps us be able to create and do things a lot faster, but the fact checking needs to be there.
So ultimately, it's working in the background, and then of course, when there are instances where it might not be sure, that's maybe when a human comes in, right?
The human has to be there to fact check.
Really?
But
Okay.
yeah, but you do use it as a utility to help in bringing out certain nuances that would probably take us weeks or months to do.
So maybe as we come to the end of our conversation, maybe I have a couple more questions for you. The first one being, do you have any advice for young African fintechs? Because I think you already mentioned that has been a big market for you, but what do you see in your crystal ball for them? What things should they pay attention to when you look backwards? What are you seeing around your thoughts around that?
For any entrepreneur, regardless of what business it is, whether it's a fintech, whether it's a farm, the basics remain the same. What are you solving for is a key thing. You've got to be very clear on what it is that you're solving for before you actually get into it. So be clear on the problem that you're solving for is the important thing. We tend to do a lot of things, well, let me not say we tend to. The one thing that you want to avoid as a young entrepreneur or going into fintech is, one, do the me too kind of proposition, or just see something that looks pretty good that is happening in China. What's the use case here? What's the problem you're solving for here is a key thing that you need to bear in mind.
Okay. So apart from that, I think I would just like to ask you, Kamau, if there's anything else you think our audience could gain from in learning what Creditinfo is doing on the ground, possibly regarding the product that we're launching today, and maybe even the roadmap going forward. What else can they expect from yourselves, in the coming months and so forth?
I think the key thing to take away is, as Creditinfo, our focus is to how do we assist our partners to service their end customer better.
Okay.
So the proposition will always be, how do we make our partners' propositions easier, more accessible
Yes.
to use than a situation where I'm looking to bill Bank X for usage. For us, the end consumer is the key thing or the key person we want to impact.
And that means creating a really good customer journey in terms of how they experience your product indirectly, so to speak, in order to achieve that objective.
So the product, the experience will always be with the bank, because that's where people are transacting. They're transacting with the bank. So how do I help the bank make that transaction for its customers as seamless as possible?
Okay. Awesome. Well, Kamau, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you sharing with us. We also want to wish you all the best with your launch.
Thank you very much.
And we're eagerly looking forward also to the new roadmap in terms of the things that you're launching in addition to the new identity and fraud system.
There are many more exciting things coming.
Yeah?
Yes.
We look forward to discussing those with you too. So, Asante Sana, we appreciate you being on the podcast and we hope to have you again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So there you have it from Kamau Kunyiha, who's given us really a lot of insights around Creditinfo from a global perspective, a local perspective, and also this sort of 20+ year experience that he has within the credit intelligence space in Kenya and East Africa. Thank you for joining us for this conversation, and we hope to catch you in the next one.